Hey, if you are a lifter with a tight upper back, especially if you sit a lot during the day, you're going to want to start taking care of your back. Otherwise, you won't be able to turn and look behind you or even take a shower without having pain. So here are 4 poses that you can use to help loosen up your spine, get your shoulders feeling better, and improve your lifting performance. I've got IFBB Pro and resistance training expert Austin Curran here to demo the poses. So if he can do them, you can too. So follow along, do your best, and at the end, you're going to be feeling a lot more mobile through your shoulders. All right, so I'm going to take you through a quick flow for your shoulders and your thoracic spine. We're going to start down on the ground. You're going to need blocks for this. If you don't have blocks, you can use stacks of books. You could use 2 foam rollers or 2 water bottles. We'll make it work. All right, so we're going to start off in what's called a child's pose with your hands on blocks. So your knees are going to be as wide as the mat. Your big toes are going to come close together like that. You're going to bring your butt as close to your heels as you comfortably can. If your knees are just a little wonky or just, you don't like bending your knees that much, then you can bring your hips forward a little bit as well. And then from here, hands are going to go shoulder width on top of the blocks. I've got 2 different blocks here. So standard blocks are about 10 inches, about 9 inches tall. These ones are 14 or 15 inches. So you can get whichever ones work. Again, foam rollers also work here. So what we're going to work on here is opening up the shoulders, getting your arms overhead, working on that overhead mobility. So here you're going to push your chest down toward the ground while almost thinking about squeezing your arms upward. So actually one way I really like to activate this is keep your right hand on the block and then just hover your left hand about an inch off the other block, right? And look how challenging that is for him. Like he's really shaking, just holding it a couple inches above the block. All right, then go ahead and relax that hand and then do the right hand. And after you do this, just even 5 seconds, 10 seconds is really helpful. But then after you finish this, you have to go ahead and relax. And now we're in this stretch, and now he's able to get a lot deeper into that stretch. So that's a cool little technique that you can use. So I'd recommend staying here for at least 60 seconds at a minimum. Really, the way that it's going to help out a lot is if we do 90 seconds or 120 seconds. So as we're here, we're breathing, slow controlled breathing in and out of the nose. This is what's really going to help with flexibility. And I also like visualizations. So if you can think, I'm going to make my body as long as I can from my hips to my shoulders, almost like you're pulling your hips down and away from the shoulders, or pulling your shoulders down away from the hands, just creating that extra space. Again, the chest is pushing down. One thing you want to avoid doing is compensating by arching your back. So you don't want to let your chest open up and spread open your rib cage. You want to think kind of drawing your rib cage in tight, having kind of a compact chest here. That's going to allow you to focus more on the shoulders. And like you just saw, if you start to get a little bit uncomfortable, you can kind of come out of it, right? Just lift out of it and then come back into it. Movement does help here. Cool. All right. Stretch number 1, done. So we're going to keep this position here with your legs, and we're going to move into a needle thread. Now, a needle thread, the full variation, I'm just going to borrow some space on the mat here. Full variation of a needle thread is going to look like this. For me, I can get my shoulder on the ground, I can get my head comfortably on the ground, but if Austin tries to do that just with, how big he is, what's going to happen is the shoulder doesn't touch the ground and his head is way off the ground. So we're going to use blocks here to make this a little easier. So I'm going to have you put a block underneath your right shoulder. You're going to put the block at the taller setting where your head will be. And then you're going to slide that right hand between your left knee and your left hand. Yep. And so what we're doing here is opening up the rhomboids. You're getting some trap action there too. Some rhomboids, some lower traps. So if you're doing any sort of upper body work, those muscles are going to get sore. So this helps to release there. We're also getting a nice twist, right? We're getting a little bit of thoracic mobility here. And the stretch that we did before this, that child's pose up on the blocks, that actually primes you really well to be able to go deeper into this twist. So it's a nice combination to use in that order. And as we're here, you want to think about breathing into your rib cage. So as you inhale, think about expanding into the ribs. And you'll notice that if you can do that kind of forcefully with the inhale, you'll feel stretching more in the shoulders, right? So really forceful, filling up in the fronts, the sides, and even the back of your upper torso, right? That whole thoracic spine area is going to help with you getting a deeper, more satisfying stretch here. Really quick, if you like this video and you want to keep doing this type of yoga and make it more consistent, I encourage you to try our free 30-day challenge. It's right here on the Manful Yoga YouTube channel, and it's going to help you be more consistent with yoga, be more flexible, be more mobile, and your lifting is going to improve as well. And trying to maintain that slow, controlled breathing and using the props like this, right, using blocks is going to allow you to relax more. And we need that aspect of relaxation in order for these stretches to work. So this is all good stuff. All right, here we've done about 90 seconds. So let's go ahead and switch sides. So once again, we're going to use the props. So now block goes under his left shoulder. He's going to slide his left hand through his right knee and his right hand, relaxing the side of the head on the block. Yep. Cool. And once again, we're going to take maybe 15, 20 seconds just to kind of check where you are in space. Say, okay, here's my shoulder. All right, here's my head. Here's my neck. You want to have the shoulders kind of relaxed down a little bit away from the ears. So make sure that you're not shrugging shoulders up near the ears and kind of creating extra tension there. If you can be a bit more active through your left arm, so it helps to kind of push that left arm down into the ground and then almost pull it back toward the left side. So you're not actually going to move the arm at all, but just creating that isometric contraction where you're pulling toward the left can help with activating that stretch through the rhomboids and lower traps a little bit better. And if you want to be even more active here, you can also push that right hand into the ground. So kind of like you would for the child's pose, and that can just add a little bit more shoulder opening. But really, you can take whatever aspects of this you want or don't want to use. So if you want to make it more intense, you can add those contractions. You can add that isometric element. But if you don't, if you're feeling good stretch and you're like, hey, this feels good, I don't need to add more to this, then you don't need to, right? So lots of different ways to modify this based on what you need in this moment. Yeah. And then using props so that we can make the pose work for your body. You're not just mirroring what you see somebody else doing. You're doing the pose as it works for you and your flexibility levels. Cool. All right. Go ahead and release. And from here, we're going to go into a Sphinx. So we are going to do a little back bend here. So you're going to lie down on your chest. Yep, I'll take those. So lie down on your chest with your forearms about shoulder width, planted on the ground. Yep. And then we're going to be about 50% muscle activation through your lower body and core. So zipper your legs up. So squeeze your big toes together, squeeze your knees, your inner thighs toward one another. Push the tops of your toes into the floor. So you're going to feel quadriceps engage as you do that. Knees lift. Try to be engaged through your core and your hips. And then bring your elbows in a little bit tighter if you can. Good. And now you're going to hug your elbows toward your hips and arch your back. So we're creating some extension here through the spine. And if you can even think pulling the shoulder blades together and hugging the elbows down so you can get even a little bit more lift. Yep, chin pulls in toward the throat, almost thinking about pushing your head up toward the ceiling. Yeah. So we're just getting a really solid controlled back bend in here. And this is, probably something that most guys who lift weights are not doing. So this is some really good spinal strengthening stuff. And this is really, really good for the spine. I could say that again if I wanted to, but I have said this is really good for the spine 3 times now. So you're just going to have to trust me. And trust Austin, because he's way smarter than me with weightlifting. And he would tell you if I was giving you bullshit. So Thank you. Yeah, so we're active here though. So he might not be showing it, but this is pretty challenging, right? So keeping the legs that active, keeping the core that active, that arch of the spine, it's going to feel really intense, but it's going to set us up really nicely for the next stretch. All right, go ahead and relax. Yeah, and now we're going to move back to very similar to that child's pose that we did before. And we're going to use the blocks again, but this time your hips are going to stay above your knees. So instead of bringing your butt back here like this, we're going to have the knees kind of in this position right here. And then if you want, actually, knee pad might be a nice thing to have here. By the way, guys, there is really no benefit to having your knees rest on the ground with pain. So please use a knee pad, use a balled up sweatshirt, use a hip thrust pad, use something here to support the knees. All right, so very similar to the child's pose. It's got, again, knees are under the hips now. We're going to go hands on the blocks and then walk your hands out, or walk the blocks out so that you can bring your chest toward the floor in a shoulder stretch. So this is going to be more intense than that first stretch that we did. Yeah, and then Austin, go ahead and see if you can relax that chest toward the ground. Yep. So getting a really deep chest stretch here, right? And then having the hips in that position that they are now, there's a lot more body weight going into this stretch. And if it feels uncomfortable, like Austin, you can bring your knees up a little bit. They don't have to be necessarily directly below the hips. So you could bring your hips back a little bit if you wanted to here, if that feels okay. Yeah. And then one other thing that I'm going to add in here. So Austin's actually doing a really good job of this, but we want to think kind of wrapping the biceps to face up. So you're wrapping the triceps down a little bit, and the biceps kind of coming in toward the ears and almost up toward the ceiling. And that's going to help you go a little bit deeper into the shoulders. Arms are straight. Yep. Take breaks as needed, or like you're doing now. Bring the arms in a little bit tighter. Yeah, and it does help to move in and out of this. So if you feel like you can't hold it for the full, we're here for a couple minutes, right? So that's a long stretch. So if you need a break, come out and come back into it. And also keep in mind, you might be strong in certain ways, but we don't do a lot of these isometric holds at all when we're doing resistance training, traditional resistance training. So this is going to feel weird. It might make you feel weak in certain positions, but finding those weak points is exactly how we get stronger. So breathe through it. I like to say it's a different kind of strength, right? Doing reps is one thing, but being able to tolerate an uncomfortable position for a long period of time, that's a different kind of strength. All right. And then we'll go ahead and come out of that.
Oh, that
sweet.
Was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice job. Good work getting through that. So 4 basic postures to help with your shoulders in just a few minutes. So yeah, good job. All right, so we just went through a basic but pretty challenging little sequence for your shoulders. We did a child's pose with your hands up on blocks. We went through a needle thread modified because we need the modification, a Sphinx, and then we finished with a puppy pose. So observations, thoughts, how you feeling?
It certainly helped my shoulders. My shoulders are always a problem area, something that is very tight. I tend to compensate a lot. I've discussed before that a lot of times weightlifters can force themselves into positions passively through external load, just through, I can't quite get my shoulders there, but as soon as I pick up heavy enough dumbbells, my shoulders go there.
So you can't get it there actively on your own, but you can use the weight to kind of just let it fall into that position.
You kind of wrench yourself into those positions.
Okay.
And you find that a lot more kind of within the strength sports, within the weightlifting, like more Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting. But bodybuilders certainly do it too. I think any weightlifter who's has an appreciable amount of muscle tissue and a lack of range of motion, we tend to kind of force ourselves into those positions. Mm-hmm. But no, those were very, very challenging, but very manageable, and something that I know if I did repeatedly and consistently would certainly open things up for me. And as you mentioned throughout the flow too, I think being able to, going to failure, fighting through fatigue, kind of embracing the suck is one thing with weightlifting and positions, but to be able to consistently hold and to breathe through an uncomfortable position, understanding that it's a position that's a positive adaptation for you. You're not just uncomfortable for the sake of it. Like your knees on the floor being uncomfortable, that's not very productive. Make them more comfortable. But your shoulders going through a position that's uncomfortable, but breathing through it, understanding that, no, this is a good thing. I'm preparing my body for more strain or stress or more adaptation in the future is a really good way to do it. So no, that feels really great. I know if I continue to do it consistently, it'd be great.
So a couple things we did in that last routine that you aren't going to do a lot of in resistance training. The first one is just getting your arms overhead and holding them there, right? Isometric. But then the other big thing is like actually doing a sustained back bend. So in particular, I want to hear about, let me rephrase that. So one thing that we don't do anything of in weightlifting, just very rarely, is actually a sustained back bend, like actually holding your spine in extension for a long period of time. So things like a cobra, a Sphinx, which if you do yoga, you're familiar with this, but if you're not, basically, a back bend and holding it. How can that be helpful for someone who's weightlifting but not doing that regularly?
I think we get a lot of forward flexion. There's a lot of neutral spine. But I think allowing yourself to understand and allow your spine and everything down the chain of, spinal erectors and obliques and transverse abdominis and rectus abdominis, all those core muscles that kind of create that internal belt, if you will, to help us stabilize. I think we tend to have a weaker link. The weakest link in that chain is spinal extension, thoracic extension, lumbar extension, just anything that has to do with that back bend position. Yeah. And I think the stronger you are, the more prepared your body is for that, the better off you are, the less risk of injury I think you have. Because I think a lot of times we tend to tweak our back, throw out our back, doing things that otherwise shouldn't do that.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of like typical exercises where you'd have that issue, right? So like a deadlift, for example.
That's a big one.
Or like a heavy squat, and your back just kind of like gives out.
Yeah, your back gives out. You find yourself in a position that's a vulnerability. And I think one great thing with yoga and how it translates into weightlifting in a big way, I think, is you're kind of shoring up those vulnerabilities. And that's how I've noticed yoga helping my weightlifting over the years, especially as I was doing more bodybuilding and had a lot of volume and wear and tear on my joints and a lot of wear and tear on my body in general. The better my yoga practice was, the more consistent it was, the better I ultimately felt. I didn't know why at the time, because I was just doing yoga because someone introduced it to me and they're like, hey, this is good. And I was like, okay, great. I'll do good things that are good. It's supposed to be good for me. I'll do it. But I just noticed myself feeling better in those end ranges. I noticed myself feeling more comfortable and in those more uncomfortable positions. And I rarely got injured during my more professional bodybuilding career. And so I would kind of chalk that up to, good program design, knowing when to say that's enough, live to train another day. But also, yoga really kind of shoring up those vulnerabilities for me in a big way.
Nice. Great job doing this workout, guys. If you want to keep working on your posture, your shoulders, your upper back mobility, this is a great routine to keep in your repertoire, okay? So bookmark it, save it somehow, and try to do it multiple times per week. Big shout out to Austin Curran for joining me on the series. You can find his links in the description below. If you like the video, like it, subscribe for more content. We put out a new video every week. And if you want to check out some of the other videos in this weightlifting and yoga series I did with Austin, go ahead and click above my shoulder and check it out.